Introducing
Real estate people.
Hey, we're the Bills! What are you talking about, Willis?
We're the real estate people.
Well, welcome everyone to the Real Estate People podcast. It's been months in the making. We've been planning, we've been talking, and we're both so excited to be here. We are Real Estate People podcast, and you know what? In the Buffalo area specifically, from where we are, I don't think there's any other podcasts that are talking about real estate. And obviously, everyone is impacted by real estate. People need a place to live, and so why not create a space for us to talk about all the ins and outs of it, whether you're a first-time home buyer or you're a big-time investor, a lawyer, a lender, whatever your role is in real estate. We want this to be a place where you can come and learn some things and have some fun along the way.
And real estate is a universal language. It's something that everybody understands in some regard, whether you're a first-time tenant or even before that, like the house you grow up in, the community you were born into, to using real estate at its highest level. There's something to understand about real estate for everybody. And I'm Nick Giambra.
And I'm Erik Arneth.
And we're very passionate.
We are.
Real estate people.
We are very passionate.
And this podcast is an outlet to explain to a new demographic of audience what real estate is.
Yeah, seriously, people go into real estate like maybe it's their first time buying a home, and they start talking to these professionals, and it is confusing. It's like learning a new language. There's so many terms and phrases that these professionals use on a day-to-day basis that just roll off their tongue like no big deal. But to a first-time listener, it's like gibberish to them. And so why not have a place where we can talk and like really unpack this stuff, you know?
I remember it took me like 25 transactions before I really knew what the hell was going on in these deals. So when you think about that from the consumer's perspective, you know, they're doing it their first time, their second time. Not many people do 25 transactions in their lives. So it's a good platform to talk to people about, hey, it's just real estate, break it down and use it to the best of its ability.
Right. And as you and I were talking about, what are the things we're going to be talking about? What kind of guests? What's our audience? We thought that the most important thing to talk about first is that first-time home buying process. So what are the steps? What are the things that you do first, second, third, as you go through all the way until you actually move into the house? But before we get into all that, which will be later episodes coming soon, we wanted to just rewind in time a little bit and go back to the origin stories. What is this?
The origin.
That felt weird.
We started here.
Is that from a movie?
I don't know. It just seems like the beginning. Like it starts small and then it expands to something larger.
Okay.
That's part of what the podcast is, right? It's helping more people achieve their goals with real estate.
Yeah.
And it's like most people say, it's where they've like made the most amount of money in their life. It's not in their job, it's in the real estate that they owned.
Interesting. So let's get in the time capsule. Let's go back to, because I mean, I'm pretty much a newbie. I've been doing this about a year and a half. Been on the team with you for that time. It's been amazing. But you've been doing this for how long?
10 years.
10 years, and now you are, you're leading a team of 13 agents, few staff members. You're growing. You're expanding. We're doing this podcast. Like, there's obviously an incredible story that leads up to this moment right now. And so what were you doing before, and how did you switch over to get into real estate?
I think it starts with my experience in the restaurant industry. Just this, when I was waiting on people and their server or their bartender, it was my job to make sure they enjoyed the experience when they were at that bar stool or at that table seat. And like, people paid you good money, right? They tipped you 20% of the total bill to make sure
you're
that
lucky.
If you did a good job.
Yeah.
Not even if you did a good job, sometimes they didn't tip that much. But
sure, yeah.
It was, I liked the concept of like, you could, how much money you earn will be directly related to the service that you're able to provide. So I always enjoyed that. Like that kind of fit my personality in a way. And then when I got into real estate, like those same things still existed. It was just a lot more zeros, right? And like the paychecks were bigger because the transaction was higher. But if I knew that if you could provide that level of service that people weren't used to or that they wanted, then you could make a lot of money doing this.
100%.
And that's what it was about at the beginning. So the same thing that why everyone gets into real estate. It's flexible. There's no ceiling. You can make your own schedule. But we've learned throughout the years that, that works for some people. But if you're building a team, not everyone operates that way. So it's about now how do we, set expectations within the team that will be satisfactory to the consumers. And then how does that all work together to make sure that everyone succeeds within a transaction?
Yeah. A lot of people talk about that flexibility and like, you'll have a flexible schedule, you're your own boss. You can make unlimited amounts of money. And when I was a teenager, I started working for a knife company selling knives. And that's literally how they pitched it to us.
Kid did that.
I know. I was there. And they brought me up to this kind of like unlabeled rented office space. And they showed us this video of somebody driving like a super nice car. And they showed us pictures of them and like of the people that were training us in like Hawaii and different places. And they're like, this is the kind of lifestyle you can live. And what they don't tell you is
in their mouth.
Seriously. And that's like, I was so caught up in that. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. And I remember my parents were like, Eric, like, you're not going to be rich selling knives. Like, do you know how many knives you're going to have to sell to be rich? And I was like, you don't believe in me. I was just like so mad at them.
So then you started selling vacuums.
Yeah. So I sold like a knife to my aunt and then maybe like a small set to one of my neighbors who felt bad for me. But anyways,
kept knocking on their door.
Yeah.
These are the best knives in the world.
Right. It lasted a couple weeks. But what I'm saying is, yes, it's flexible. Yes, there's unlimited potential as far as income. And it can be one of the most rewarding careers in the world. But there's a lot of work involved in doing that. So when you first started, you were with a brokerage, I'm assuming. You were on your own, solo agent.
When I first started, I partnered up with somebody who taught me real estate from like the absolute legal perspective. The lady I partnered with was older. She was in the business probably for over 30 years. Her husband was a real estate lawyer. So the education, the coaching I got like from my first days in real estate was from the black and white perspective. Like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and you don't cross those boundaries. And she felt strongly about that, especially because her husband was a lawyer. And those were the same like qualities that, that she used in her business that what inspired me at the beginning, like knowing exactly what you can and cannot do, right? And then holding true to those principles. And then it was like broker to broker, right? I was younger. I was blaming the brokers for not being successful or they should be doing this, and just the, entitled kid running around.
Just blaming other people for your lack of success.
Yeah, just an entitled kid. It's like when someone switches a restaurant job, right? They think it's, or maybe not like that, but just bouncing around broker to brokerages, like trying to figure out what was best or getting more money or more splits or whatever.
You were bouncing around to different brokerages?
I worked at probably 5 or 6 brokerages before Keller Williams.
I didn't know that.
In 10 years.
Wow.
Switching brokers is not the way to succeed. A lot of people think.
You learn as you go, right?
When things aren't going well, right, and you want to blame somebody, blame your broker. If you switch brokers, it'll all get better. But when you wake up, you're the same person as you were the night before, no matter which broker was holding your license. But
yeah.
So we swapped around. Somehow ended up at Keller Williams, which, I mean, there's a couple of people that mentored me when I got to Keller that I wouldn't be in this position today without the previous owners of this brokerage who really pushed me to do the team thing. So without their push, I probably would have never made that first hire. Without that first hire, nobody else would have been there. So, and then it just became like a team thing. And it's so much better, right? Using a team to help serve people's intentions rather than just doing everything yourself as a solo agent. So
100%. That's why I joined the team.
It's better that way. It's more fun. It's more engaging.
There's camaraderie. There's accountability. There's training. When I first got started, I didn't know anything at all. Like I took the 75-hour course to get my license, but that happens in 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how fast you want to do it. And all of a sudden you have a real estate license and you're broadcasting to the world, hey, if you're looking to buy or sell, give me a call. And then when people do call you, literally every question they ask you, you don't know the answer to. So to have a team of people who are experienced and who know the language, who have hundreds of transactions under their belt has been so valuable to me. I learned a lot.
It's all about the team. You're only as good as your weakest link, right? And when you think about teams in general, a lot of people like mine may start going to like sports teams. And just think about like the Patriots, 16-0. You know, they didn't win 16 games and lose 0 because of just Tom Brady or Bill Belichick or whoever. They did it because everybody on that team knew their role. They understand their place in it, and there was intentional focus like that was given to each individual to succeed. And that's how you win. And that's how we help our clients win. Like if Erik was managing every transaction that was pending and having to deal with all the compliance and all the paperwork, how far could you get doing all of the steps of everything by yourself?
Right.
So it's about building this team to help, really push our mission and our vision. And our mission is to make every real estate transaction inclusive, transparent, and rewarding. And those are some big words, inclusive, transparent, and rewarding. But the one I focus on most is every, because that's what it's about to me, that every consumer in real estate, whether they hire me or not to help them, has an equal chance of purchasing something, has a rewarding experience by the end of it. And it was transparent throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and that just speaks volumes because the success that you've had as an agent, as a team lead, and the reason why the people who join your team stick around is because of that drive that you have and that leadership that you provide to pass that down to the people on your team to provide that same level of experience. You're like cloning yourself almost in some ways, at least when it comes to the values that you bring to the transaction.
Yeah, and it's more than just real estate, right? And as a leader, you have to put yourself behind everyone else and make sure the other perspectives within your life and your organization are served first. So when you start to think about like employees, clients, the community, and shareholders, like how do you rank those perspectives? To me, it's all about the clients. Without them, nothing behind it exists. So they need to be, treated with their perspective first. Then you got to take care of the employees. And then is the stuff you're doing with your clients and your employees, building the community that you're in? Are we serving the community as well? And then when you take care of those three perspectives, the shareholders will be taken care of. But, as corny as it sounds, leaders eat last. And, but what we do every day is not about us. And I think that's important in business. And it's also important in your personal life, knowing that what we do in this world is not about us. And when you think it is about you, you're going to hit something in life that's a lot bigger than you, right? And then you're going to stop doing what you do because it's all about you. But
yeah, there needs to be some level of humility involved.
Yeah, and empathy and all of those other vulnerability, wholeheartedness, those type of things. Like when you start operating with that mindset and you switch from that place of fear to that place of love, like life is so much better.
Yeah. I thought it'd be fun if we kind of shared the story of how we met. I could get a little into what I was doing before, and then we can share like perspectives of each other, and then where we're at now a year and a half later after we met.
Yeah, so talk to me about your journey getting into real estate. What were you doing prior to taking that 75-hour course?
So for like 10 years, I worked at a local youth organization. We ran big events and programs for youth and families. And it was so much fun. It was my passion. I loved it. I never thought I would be doing anything else at the time when I was doing it. It just checked all the boxes for me. Creativity. I just love people, being around people, helping people, training, stuff like that. We had about 100 volunteers on a weekly basis. We had 500 or 600 kids coming through our doors to our programs and events.
That's a big organization.
Yeah, and the events that we did, I mean, think Nickelodeon in the 90s. That was the style of like Wild and Crazy Kids and all those different game shows and stuff. We had bands and onstage games and giveaways and all that. And it was just so much fun. I worked on a young team. We had our own office suite in a 25,000 square foot building. And that building was designed for teenagers,
That's cool.
It was awesome. I loved it.
That's a lot of responsibility too, though.
It was. It was like weekly public speaking to hundreds of people, sometimes in front of even more, And as a youth organization too, there's lots of obviously rules and regulations to keep teenagers safe and to work alongside parents and stuff like that. But I learned so much. And I believe that one of the reasons why real estate is a good fit for me is because of that prior experience that I had doing that. Just talking to so many different people from all different walks of life, helping them to
passion.
transition from one point of their life to another, which is what I did with middle schoolers, right? Middle school is probably the most awkward time in your whole life. When you're in elementary school, a parent can tell you anything. They just tell you whatever they want for you to believe, and you believe it with no question. And then in middle school, you start to get exposed to other ideas, different beliefs, and you start to kind of form your own thoughts. And at the same time, we don't have to get into all the details of what happens when you're in middle school, but things start to change.
Yeah.
And it's just awkward, And so to provide a safe place for kids to come and have fun and be accepted as they are, and to help them transition into that next phase was just my passion for a long time. But right around COVID, when that hit, my wife was pregnant with our third kid. I started to have a little bit of a difference in philosophy or belief with the organization I was in. They were going in a direction. They had some values that I just couldn't agree with anymore. And so I slowly started to transition out of there, and it was a mutual decision between me and the organization I was with. And right when COVID hit and my wife was pregnant, I was home. I didn't have a job anymore. And so I was unemployed because it was my decision to leave. I wasn't getting unemployment, but I just decided in that time, the first two kids that I have, because I have three kids, the first two kids I had, I was out of work for 2 weeks and then back to work right away. And so I didn't get that bonding time. I wasn't there to really support my wife the way that I wish I could have now looking back. It's just like kind of the normal thing to do in our culture for a man or whatever, to
2 weeks off, right?
2 weeks off, right back to work. And there's my wife with, our second kid, and she had a toddler and a newborn, and she just went through a major surgery, and I'm back at work having fun with teenagers and stuff, like doing those events and stuff. But with our third, I was able to be home for most of her pregnancy, and I was able to be home for the first 6 months of my daughter Finley's life. And it was the most incredible experience. I wish that I could force every guy who has a kid to be home for like a year during that first time, that first season of the baby's life. The bond that I have with my daughter is incredible. And it really was eye-opening to me. I believe that the hardest job that you can have, harder than any other job, is being a stay-at-home parent. You don't realize it until you're doing it. And so I had that realization. But obviously we needed money. So I started to think about what I wanted to do. I ended up connecting with a local plumbing company. They were expanding and growing, and they needed someone to help their teams work well together. So I wasn't going to be the one with the wrench or anything. I was going to help on a more leadership level, helping their teams work together, helping communication and relationships between all the different departments and stuff. And I was excited about the opportunity. I was obviously humbled and honored that they would even consider me for that. But there was something that ruined me about the job that I had before. I had such a passion for it that I couldn't quite get myself to be passionate about plumbing. Even though I wouldn't be the guy with the wrench, I just couldn't get myself there. And my wife reminded me of a conversation that we had a couple times. Why don't you try real estate? And so I was like, you know what? I'll give it a try. I feel like I have the people skills. I like Buffalo where I live. Let's give it a shot. So I called a local real estate school. They had just started a class. I actually missed the first class, but he said that if I made up that class and I signed up, I could join the class that night. So I made the decision to be in real estate. I called this school, and that night was my first class.
That's cool.
And the rest is history.
And then how did we get linked up?
So your mom was a volunteer at the organization
Previous
I ran at. Yeah,
organization?
she was there the whole time, and she was one of my favorite people. I mean, with over 100 volunteers, I always found myself hanging out with Michelle, your mom. And so I remember her when she was taking her real estate courses and getting her license, and she would talk about you. I had never met you in person, although there's a little bit of a link between our families, right? You went to school with my sister, didn't you?
Yeah, you are not the first Arneth that I was exposed to. I used to pass notes to your sister. I think
I wasn't going to say it.
I
But
can't remember what grade it was. It was like obviously as harmless as it could be. It was
yeah, so cute.
do you like me? Yes, no, maybe type of notes.
Yeah.
So how old
What
are
did
you?
she circle?
That awkward middle school time that you were talking about, like that's where I was in. What did she circle? I don't know. I can't remember.
We'll just say yes.
Probably she said no.
You're younger than her.
She was my sister's grade, so yeah, a year or two older.
Okay, which at that time is a big deal. Like a couple of years is a huge deal.
Yeah, I was reaching for sure in that situation, like with an older girl in middle school in those awkward ages. But then when I met you, it was, dude, you're an awesome guy. Like,
Thank you.
all that stuff you're just talking about in your previous job, that leadership, that responsibility, you take all of that stuff extremely seriously.
I do.
Like extremely important to you, and your empathy is what, like you just lead with empathy, like an insane amount in everything that you do, like the way you talk about your family, the way you talk about your relationship, the way you talk to your clients, and that to me is what I was like, damn, this is a really good dude. And you were a great example to me every day about, what it means to lead from the heart. So we just vibed like as soon as we met.
So I got my license actually while I was taking classes right across the hall in the same building that we're in right now is where my classes were. And I knew that your mom, Michelle, worked in here. And so I just felt I wanted to work with Michelle. That was my first draw towards the team. And so every time I was in the building, I would stop over and say hi. I was trying to introduce myself to you a couple times. You're busy, you're out of the office, you're on showings, you're just selling $1 million stuff, whatever. And but there was one time when I came in the office and you happened to be slightly available. I think you were with one of your new agents, you were showing them something, and I just popped in, introduced myself, and I think I may have plugged myself a little bit, like, hey, I'd love to be on the team, or I'd love to talk with you about that. And it was a quick handshake, and you said, yeah, let's do it. But that was my goal. Like, that was my drive, is to be on your team from the beginning. Yeah.
We're on the same team.
Yeah. And actually, just a quick little side note, the plumbing job that I almost got, you grew up with the guy that runs that plumbing company. So when I found that out, when I was trying to be on your team, I definitely gave him a call and asked him to put a good word in for me with you. And
that was after you told him you weren't taking the job?
Yeah. Yes.
And he still helped you out. That speaks volumes to the character he has too.
Definitely. And I think it would have been a good fit for me, honestly. But I'm so happy with the decision I made ultimately to be here. But yeah, I got off the phone with him. I said, hey, you got to call Nick Giambra. I heard you guys grew up together. Can you put in a good word? He goes, yeah, when I have time, I will. Literally 5 minutes later, you called me. This is Nick Giambra calling for Erik Arneth, or whatever you said. I was like, holy crap. And we set up a time to talk, and we sat out in the lobby here, and we talked for maybe a half an hour. And you extended the invite.
It didn't take a long time to like decide to hire you, or to start working together. In real estate, you're not really hiring people.
Right.
You got to like partnering with them on an independent contractor level.
But you're inviting someone to come into your ecosystem.
But it was immediate, dude. Like we started, we met once. You started on the team, and you've been here for about 18 months now, and we're on a podcast together. It's pretty cool.
I know, it's great. And a little like my perspective of you, and this was actually told to me by a couple people before I met you, that you can come across as, how do I say this lightly? Maybe like, I don't know, you're like tough. You're kind of intimidating sometimes on first glance, first time somebody meets you. You're confident, you're big, you just come across that way, and you don't take BS from anyone, right? And so, but what they told me was that you have a soft you're like, I don't know how to say it. You're a softie at heart.
You're a
That's actually
softie
what
for
somebody
real.
said to me. He comes across as a hard ass, but he's a softie at heart. And I recognize that from the first time I talked to you. You know, people have perspective of you sometimes or whatever, but when I got to know you and the way that I see you striving to be a better person and to be more present and to be a better leader, and you're leading a book club, you know, who does that? You could just be grinding, but you're taking the time to read a book a month and you're taking your team through it so that we all grow together. And that's huge. And that's why, you know, I have a lot of respect for you that way too.
We're here. We're doing this,
Definitely.
and there is no shortage of passion between the two of us when it comes to leadership, when it comes to helping people, and it comes to real estate. And that's where this podcast is born from. Just touching more lives about real estate.
Right. So I'm so excited for the journey. This is day one. We got the whole crew here, and we're just dreaming about what the future is going to be, all the different people that we want to talk to, all the different places that this podcast will take us, and more importantly, how much we believe that this podcast is going to help the listeners of the podcast, whether it's first-time home buying, big-time investor, real estate professional, or, you know, I want to get into living in Western New York and the different neighborhoods in the area and, you know, restaurants and stuff like that. So I feel like there's a little bit of something for everyone. Plus, like we talked about, real estate is such a universal thing for people. Anyone can connect with it. People who know me, who know I'm in real estate, they bring it up and they ask me questions and they talk about stories of their own real estate journey. And so
it's easy to engage with people about real estate.
Yeah, definitely.
And at the end of the day, we wouldn't be here without Jane and Perno Brothers.
Yes.
We wouldn't be in these seats today without them. So big shout out to the people behind the scenes on this as well.
Right.
For making this happen. So let's rock.
All right, buckle up. End of episode 1. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Eric.
Frank's is one of the best in the business. They're really big, but they're local. And speaking of origin stories, which is what this episode is about, they're a family-owned business. You know, Dad started the business a long time ago. I actually used to work for Frank Sr. back in the day, pulling weeds at business parks and stuff. And over the years, it's grown tremendously. They have hundreds of employees and tons of inventory.
Hundreds of trucks.
Yeah, I mean, their warehouse is gigantic. They're expanding into more areas of New York. And Frank Jr. just took over, and he is just taking it to the next level. If you need somebody who's going to be on time, on budget, and do what they say in a trustworthy way, don't even look further than Frank's.
Likability, expertise, and trust. Frank's Basements.
100% Frank's.
We've been working with Movement Mortgage for 10 years.
Has it been 10 years?
The origin of the real estate team was with Movement Mortgage.
And they're still, okay, so we're talking 10 years of doing business with the company, and we're still going strong.
The same originator, the same processor, the same closing department. It's Movement Mortgage.
Most of my clients I actually send to Movement Mortgage because of the quality of work they do, because of the personal touch that they give everything, and they're creative too. You know, you might talk to some loan officers that tell you can't do something. A lot of times at Movement Mortgage, they just take it a step further, and they sometimes come up with creative ways to make your deal happen.
They're magicians with mortgages.
That's what we call the one loan officer.
Magicians with mortgages at Movement Mortgage.
That's a lot of M's.
If you want M's, go to Movement Mortgage.